Hello, I'm Mark from Trail Buddy. Today we're going to go over our motors, why they're different, and what you get and what to be careful for when you're looking at other motors at different sites and on Fleabay. So we'll get into the parts and pieces. We have on my right, we've got a 140cc, and then on my left here, we've got our 125. But the important thing is that we specify these things pretty much the same for each one. Um, some manufacturers won't do exactly what we want on some particular things, but to the T, though, we can get everything ordered the way that we want it to be built. And each motor comes with the same components from, let's say, this 125 to this 140. They'll have everything the same. They all come with the same components, except if you get to the electric start, they'll have the addition of an electric start relay. Another thing that we put in our motors that other people don't is we actually have the wiring key here for the functions of the outputs for the colors that are coming out of the pigtail. So that way you don't have to guess. A lot of the other people that we've helped over the phone and they've got a motor from someone else, most of the time they've got no idea what color goes to what function that's coming out of the motor. But every motor, regardless of the CCs, will come with this. The parts and pieces that you're going to get with a motor, again, will be similar unless it's an electric start. But we've got each motor will come with a voltage regulator, a new CDI box, matches with the motor RPMs. We'll have our coil here for our spark plug. And then we'll get into the carburetor. So the carburetor comes in assembly. Now this will be different depending on the CCs of the motors that you have. But what everything will come with is we'll have our intake, which is a turned out intake. So it'll be moved just to the side of the body of the bike. That way you can clear the throttle cable. It'll come with the isolator, gasket, and the carburetor itself. The next piece is our air filter. So now these come non-oiled. So what you're going to want to do is oil the outside here and leave the inside non-oil. That helps out pretty good for the dust. But it comes with an air filter and the hose clamp, followed by some of the control pieces here. So now we've got our shifter. This may vary just a little bit on the color and the shape depending on the CC of the bike. And then it'll also come with the Kickstarter. So those are the components that you get that you don't have to hunt for after the fact. What we'll get into now is kind of the physical shape of the motor and why it's different. So on all of our motors, we strive to make sure that they can actually bolt up in a Trail 70. So now they can actually bolt up into other makes of bikes in terms of models of Hondas. So like I have one in my S65 from 1965, which is a great little road bike. I believe I put a 125 in that 4-speed clutch, and it bolts right up. Where you're going to run into a problem a little bit is not necessarily the Trail 70, but when you start getting to the, if you're replacing this motor, let's say on like a 190 or anything in the 90 cc's, they have a different bolt pattern here. Now this will line up correctly, but you'll have to buy another spacer down for the bottom part to get that to match where that other mounting hole is. But these all mount up. So what you'll see on some other motors on eBay and some other different places is they usually have a heavy gusset right here. So what that says or runs into is there's a little piece of metal on the front of your frame that you'll have to either cut that off. Typically people will cut the frame, but our motors bolt right in with the shape that they have. We also specify the parts and the pieces on the outside. So we get the engines here with the good aluminum head. Most heads are going to be aluminum, but we make sure we get the nice ones. Most of the time we try to specify these so they're not painted, so they dissipate heat faster than a painted head. The next part, as we move down the motor, is we've got our jug. So we also specify an aluminum jug with a steel bore. Again, non-painted. So that, again, dissipates heat a lot quicker, makes the oil last longer, makes the engine last longer. And versus what you'll see for the lower cost motors is a lot of times they come with a big, heavy steel cast jug. No sleeve, it is what it is, it's bored out. It's actually more similar to the older Hondas, but with the newer technology we have today, we can have the benefits of the heat dissipation. And then it's also non-painted, so it helps get rid of heat quite a bit more. As we move down, We've got our dipstick here, which you got to look out for too on some of the other engines, where it does not get in the way of your components here on the right side. Namely, they've kind of got our brake sensor bracket will live over here somewhere. A lot of those other motors that aren't necessarily designed or specified for Trail 7, they'll have the dipstick will be right over here, and then you can't get the darn dipstick in and out because it hits that brake switch sensor bracket. We also, as simplistic as our sprockets here, and it uses the same spline diameter as a regular Honda, so you can just get regular sprockets like you regularly would get the Trail 70. They'll bolt right up to our motors. As we're moving down the motor further with the electric start ones, we also specify a bottom electric start. You'll see some real cheap motors where the electric start is on the top. Now what those are for, those are more for a Passport chassis, because on a Passport, the carburetor and some of the other ones actually go towards the front of the bike, not towards the back of the bike like on a Trail 70 or most other bikes. So that's why you'll see these with a starter right here, and that's just bad news. You really hate life if you bought that motor and it's got the starter here, because just think of, where is that carburetor going to go? It can't live in the same spot. You get your frame here. That's not what you want. The internals and the clutches and the gearing, it's hard to say what some of the other motors, I mean, if something's cheaper, there's usually a reason, right? It's, they're going to try to make as much money as they can, so they're going to just get the cheapest thing that they can. And a lot of people, especially on the eBay stuff, they're just dumping inventory. So who knows what they got? They want to get rid of it. But we're also here to answer questions the best that we can based on your application that you're doing. So that's a really good overview of what our motors are and what are those little details that make them a little bit easier to work with, and what we believe is a better product in the end. We also try to go through cable fitment as much as we can with the control brackets that we have in stock. What that would be is like our throttle cables. We make sure that those work with our engines to what we sell for our throttle tubes and whatnot. Also, our clutch cables. We've got our clutch cables set up to where they work with the controls that we carry in stock to our motors, so that we don't have to chase all that down. And then a lot of our electrical components too, because what we specify with this too is we make sure that it has a full wave rectifier versus a half wave. The full wave rectifier just gives you a better consistent power output, just simplistically. That's another thing that we have, because the lights will run a little bit better and have a little bit better voltage output, but that's what you'll get too. So that covers the basics. Again, we've got all the parts and pieces, everything except a wire harness, but that's usually a la carte. That's depending on what it is that you're doing. One more other thing before I forget is the foot bracket assembly that we sell on our site fits these transmissions for the width. You'll not be able to use your stock one, but there are aftermarket engines out there where they're really, really wide, and it's a bear to try to get foot peg assemblies that match. So I hope that's informative. I hope that helps. You can find all these motors on mytrailbuddy.com.